Another edition of your favorite political economy program, the Economy and Politics Show, where we capture the nexus between socio-political developments and the economy. Here's a lineup for you today. COVID-19 index and analysis across the globe. AFDB's president's exoneration from any impropriety by an independent review panel. Jimobia's perspective on building a brand through innovation. President Buhari appoints new deputy commissioners for Regulatory Commission NICOM. Oil and gas updates, and we'll bring you COVID-19 and the U.S. consumer confidence. Let's begin with the COVID-19 index globally. And at the moment, the total confirmed cases are currently over 16.3 million confirmed cases across the globe, with over 650,000 deaths. The top 10 countries with high cases of COVID-19 include the United States of America with 4.2 million plus cases. Brazil, second, 2.4 million plus cases. India is third with 1.4 million plus cases. Russia is fourth with 820,000 plus cases. South Africa comes fifth with 450,000 plus cases. Mexico is sixth with 390,000 plus cases. Peru is seventh with 380,000 plus cases. Chile is 8th with 340,000 plus cases. UK is 9th with 300,000 plus cases. And Iran is 10th with 290,000 plus cases. In terms of continental distribution, the Americas accounts for the highest in terms of distribution with 8,728,962. Europe has 3,261,042 to come second. Southeast Asia region has 1,838,380 to come third, while Middle East has 1.494,697. Africa accounts for 726,105, while the Western Pacific has 291,993. The source of this information is from the World Health Organization. Just giving you updates on the index of COVID-19. From the analysis, Iran has now joined the top 10. Iran wasn't in the top 10 before, but now Iran is back to top 10 of the highest cases of COVID-19 across the globe. Let's get on to a very, very positive story for Nigeria and Africa, which has to do with the incumbent president of the African Development Bank. The independent review panel set up to investigate Dr. Akinwumi Adesina has submitted its independent report and exonerated the president of the FDB. The panel stated in its report that it is satisfied that the Ethics Committee considered the complaints in a comprehensive and responsible manner, and also said it had considered the president's submissions on their face and finds them consistent with his innocence. The panel also made conclusions regarding the report of the Ethics Committee and its concluding observations on the FDB president's response. In terms of the conclusion of the panel was satisfied that the Ethics Committee considered the complaints received by it on 19th January 2020 in a comprehensive and responsible manner and followed correct procedures. It considered them both as complaints submitted pursuant to the resolution and pursuant to paragraph 4 of the whistleblowers policy. It appropriately took the advice of the General Counsel in identifying its duty. It conducted the preliminary examination of the complaints as it was required. It took proper note of the criteria laid down for evaluating complaints and the sufficiency of this supporting evidence. It consulted the necessary committees and the Auditor General on the issues. It engaged in discussion and debate of each individual complaint and reached a consensus on the outcome. It applied the correct standard and prepared a report for submission to the chairperson of the Bureau of the Board of Governors. The panel concurs with the committee in its findings in respect of all the allegations against the president and finds that they were properly considered and dismissed by the committee. In terms of its observations, the panel was mindful of the fact that the absence of evidence was not evidence of absence. At the same time, it appeared that there was undue burden to expect a holder of high office in an international organization to prove a negative in the absence of sufficient grounds. An attorney writing on behalf of the president also argued quite correctly, in their view, that a distinction should be drawn between alleged institutional failure at the bank and the conduct of the president. The panel said it had not attached any value to the dissociation note in its deliberations. The FDB president, according to them, was also, as part of his detailed submission, enclosed 18 annexes which he believed might be relevant and necessary to make his case and assert his right to due process. The panel explained at the outset that it was dividing its report into two parts. In the first part, it considered the complaints provided to the Ethics Committee by the whistleblowers and found that they had been properly considered and dismissed by the committee. In its second part, it considered, in the interest of due process, the responses of the president, while the committee was not required to consider and did not, in fact, consider the president's responses. It was in the interest of fairness and of due process that the panel be required to do so. As it had explained, the panel had not passed judgment on the president's evidence. It had also borne in mind that the whistleblowers' complaints were wrongly publicized and that fairness required that the president be heard. It had also considered the president's submissions on their face and finds them consistent with his innocence and to be persuasive. That's a positive for Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, who is the current president of the African Development Bank, driving various strides in repositioning the African Development Bank to lead Africa's industrialization. Dr. Akinwumi Adesina has been bullish about Africa's prospects of feeding itself, industrializing itself, powering itself, and transforming businesses across the region. And this definitely should clear the path for him to serve a second term. Don't forget that another Nigerian, Professor Benedict Rama, recently was re-elected president of the Africa Exim Bank, and hopefully we're expecting that that would be the case for Dr. Akinwumi Adesina. Let's go on to the insurance sector, and President Muhammadu Buhari approved the appointment of Alhaji Sabiu Bello Abubakar and Mr. Oba Olufemi Oluni, FCA, as Deputy Commissioners for Insurance of the National Insurance Commission. That's the regulatory body for the insurance industry. According to a statement issued by Deputy Director, Commissioner for Insurance Directorates, Sabiu Bello will function as the Deputy Commissioner Technical, while Oba Olufemi Oluni will serve as the Deputy Commissioner in charge of Finance and Administration in the Commission. Both appointments are effective from July 17, 2020, for an initial tenure of 5 years. For Mr. Sabiu Bello Abubakar, his brief profile shows that he joined Jais Takaful Insurance PLC as Executive Director, Operations and Training in November 2017. He's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Insurance of Nigeria, CIIN, and Chartered Insurance Institute of London, CIIL, as well as associate member of the Nigerian Institute of Management. He graduated from Usman Dan Fodio University, Sokoto, with a bachelor's degree in education and had a master's degree in business administration and finance from the Bayero University, Kano. Having 25 years work experience in the insurance industry, serving in various capacities, he started his working career with Nikon Insurance Corporation and worked in a number of other insurance institutions in Nigeria. Prominent among them are Industrial and General Insurance Company, IGI, Cornerstone Insurance PLC, and the Nigerian National Insurance Commission, NICOM. A prominent advocate and facilitator of financial inclusion in Nigeria, particularly Takaful and microinsurance, with special skill in business ethics and development, Mr. Abubakar has vast experience in insurance regulation, oil and energy insurance, reinsurance, and insurance product development and design. At NICOM, he was head market development and chaired many committees such as Insurance of Government Strategic Assets Committee, and contributed in development of many regulatory guidelines and policies. He's a professional manager and has proven records on management. He has attended several trainings, both local and overseas. For Oba Olufemi Oluni, is a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Accountants, ICANN. He has served in NICOM for over 20 years, rising to the ranks. In 2016, he was redeployed to oversee the Supervision Directorate of the Commission. He has held several positions of directorate level in NICOM and was appointed to serve as non-executive member of the Governing Board of the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria. Two deputy commissioners who are coming to work with Mr. Sunday Thomas, who was confirmed recently as the commissioner for NICOM. Definitely We expect that NICOM will take its position and drive effective insurance industry, position Nigeria's insurance sector, deepen its penetration level, and make it more attractive and more innovative as expected. That's for the insurance sector. Yesterday, business leader and financial market guru, Mr. Jim Ovia, engaged stakeholders under the auspices of the Nigeria-British Chamber of Commerce Experience Sharing Series. This was the second edition of the series. The first earlier this year had Mr. Aigbo as the second keynote speaker for the MBCC Experience Sharing Series. For those of you that know that name, Mr. Jim Ovia is a brand name. He's the founder and chairman of Zenith Bank, a bank that he has led for over 3 decades to become one of the leading banks in sub-Saharan Africa with over $16 billion in valuation. He shared his perspective on the theme, building a brand, and he decided to take it further by saying, building a brand through innovation. Let's watch some clip of his thoughts and perspective on building a brand through innovation.
Branding. What is really a brand? What does it really matter whether you have a good brand or you don't? Or whether institutions' brand matter or not? It matters greatly. The practical definition of brand or branding I'm going to present to you is the one of Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos, I picked him because he's an outstanding entrepreneur. We all know him, we use his product, we use his services, online businesses. He's the CEO of Amazon. Jeff Bezos said, a brand for a company is like reputation for a person. A brand for a company is like reputation for a person. So now, who is Jeff Bezos to tell us that? He's a well-renowned, very successful, in fact, he's currently the richest man in the world. So which example can I also present to you? Jeff Bezos is the richest man, and that is what he thinks a brand is. Brand is integrity, is reputation, both for a company, a corporate organization, a nation, and services being offered, product, and also for individuals. That is branding. Now, having given an example of a reputable individual and highly successful individual to give us the definition of a Kickstarter of brand and branding, let's also go to the public sector and let's see how they define, how they look at branding. Now, no other person but Lee Kuan Yew, late, of Singapore, how he built Singapore from a third world to a first world branding is. He knows how to build a brand. How he built a third world economy to a first world, then definitely he knows. He's always talking about reputation and integrity. And you could see that in his book, From the Third World to the First. That was the story of Singapore. Particularly at the time he decided he had to create a financial center out of a small island of less than 6 million people, hinterland. They had no known well countries on their borderline that they could really emulate. And they had just been separated by the British from Malaysia. So they had nothing. It was like a dreamer thinking about building a financial center out of Singapore. But he did. And the reputation was such that the standard was so high. The integrity was so high. His ministers must emulate his integrity. How do we build a brand? Through innovation and creativity. In many ways, the very highly successful companies in the world, their brands were built through innovation. Amazon is one of them. The kind of things that Amazon does today, if they were not innovating, they won't be able to do that. Despite the pandemic, the stock price of Amazon continued to rise, whereas many institutions are falling by the wayside, blaming pandemic. But now you have to stay at home, you shop online, do many things online. That's due to the innovation and creativity of Jeff Bezos. Then you go further than that. What else can you discover or learn through innovation and creativity of building a brand?
And those were interesting insights from Mr. Jim Ovia, Commander of the Order of the Niger and Chairman and Founder of Zenith Bank PLC. It was interesting to hear about branding. I mean, for someone like me, I've read about branding, but the perspective he brought was really deep and incisive. The first key takeaway from that was the fact that brand for a company is like reputation to a person. So branding is integral, is what you are, is what you do. And that was very clear from his analysis, citing Mr. Jeff Bezos, who leads one of the most valuable companies in the world, that's Amazon. Amazon is valued now at $1 trillion market capitalization, and also in terms of revenue and value, it's a multi-billion-dollar company. Other companies like Apple, like Facebook have also learned the understanding of branding. This is why they have contributed to the growth of the American economy. And then he talked about Singapore. Singapore, led by Lee Kuan Yew, today is a global financial center. When you go to Asia, you cannot do financial activities or operations without keying to Singapore. And that is part, again, of reputation, integrity, and value. A lot of people that have traveled to Singapore have talked about how the country has high standards and high value for integrity. And that, again, is why they are a brand that you can associate with as a nation. And talk about branding, Rwanda in Africa is an interesting story too. I mean, it shows you that when nations set to do what is right, they also position themselves as brands and they can attract investment. One interesting takeaway additionally from Mr. Jimovia's perspective was the fact that about Japan, you can say that about industrial nations. So when you have effective brands and countries that are doing well, check very well, you see that they have successful brands. But let's go further onto his experience. In the Q&A session, where he was asked about how he has evolved as the chairman of Zenith Bank, what has really happened, he said the reputation and mission he created for the Zenith Bank brand in terms of his philosophy for the past 3 decades was one laced with determination to create value, maintain integrity, and enhance service delivery in the Nigerian financial services industry. Don't forget, Mr. Jimovia and his peers led banking during the military era. And for those of us that are conversant with history in economy and the financial market, the late General Sani Abacha dealt ruthlessly with some bank CEOs who did not do well in terms of managing their banks in the failed banks tribunal. That was between 93 and 95. And so for Mr. Jimovia and his peers, they came on board to transform the story of banking. And today, Zenith Bank, amongst other banks, are making strides not just in Nigeria, but across the globe. On record, according to Mr. Jimovia's presentation, Zenith Bank, throughout its operations in the UK, has not been penalized by the Financial Services Authority of the UK. Those are ways in which brands represent their country in highest levels of integrity and value. So brand is integral with reputation and integrity. And when you think about branding, that should always come to the fore. What you do, what you stand for, and how you deliver service. Those were incisive thoughts. And no wonder this MBCC webinar with Mr. Jimovia had over 600 people in attendance. It was quite engaging. And those are very, very innovative ways of engaging during the pandemic, making it rich. Nice thoughts from Mr. Jimovia. And glad that we have such Nigerian financial gurus and business leaders making strides across the globe. Let's go on to the oil and gas industry globally. What has been happening? Interesting stories. Let's get on to oilprice.com with source from Tom Cool. What are the developments in the oil price and global markets? Well, the oil price has been on autopilot for weeks, and the start of this week is no different. Prices remain trapped in the low $40 level, hemmed in by supply curtailments on the one hand and concerns about depressed demand on the other. Let's give you some insights on what's been happening. First is that Reliance Industries has surpassed ExxonMobil in market share, rising to the second largest energy company in the world after Saudi Aramco. This is really interesting. If you asked me 5 years ago, I would say it's a big dream for Reliance to even be in the first three. But that's the story today. Reliance has surpassed ExxonMobil, who has operations in Nigeria, as the second largest energy company in the world. Reliance has the world's largest oil refinery and is now worth $189 billion, edging past the American supermajor. Reliance, of course, for those of you that know the business globe analysis, is an Indian company owned by Mukesh Ambani, multi-billionaire. In terms of the global energy space, more LNG cargoes have been cancelled, but fewer. Around 30 liquefied natural gas cargoes have been cancelled from the U.S. ports for the month of September, another month of large cancellations. However, that is fewer than the 50 cancelled cargoes in July and 45 in August, offering some glimmer of hope that the market is eventually getting in shape. All majors have been reporting earnings in the market. The majors will report the second quarter earnings in the next few days, and we'll be looking out for that. And analysts expect the numbers to be brutal. The consensus is that the top 5 majors will all report a loss. You heard that. The top 5 oil majors will report a loss. Royal Dutch Shell, Eni, and Total, which are major oil majors, and also ExxonMobil and Chevron will report this month and early August. So we'll watch out for those reports and bring them to you, because Nigeria, of course, you know, it's an oil-producing country, and these oil majors have operations in Nigeria. The oil-producing, exporting countries is prepared for long-term decline. That story may not be so palatable for markets, particularly in Nigeria. Some OPEC officials are admitting that oil demand could be permanently damaged from the pandemic, and some are even admitting that demand may have peaked. The demand does not return to pre-crisis levels, or it takes time for this to happen, an OPEC source told Reuters news agencies. The main concern is that oil demand will peak in the next few years due to rapid technological advances, especially in car batteries. Satellite tech can track methane plumes. That's what we are getting from the International Energy Research and Analysis. Kairos company is using satellite technology that for the first time can track major leaks of methane with pinpoint accuracy. More than 790 methane plumes were emitted from energy infrastructure last year, a figure that is likely an undercount because of clouds and other interference. Let's go on to Egypt in Africa, and Egypt has summed its pipeline flows to a trickle. Yes, that's the report from Egypt. The summed pipeline in Egypt has a capacity of 2.5 million barrels per day, bypassing the Suez Canal, but actual oil flows have been running at a loss. Russian contractors are taking control of the Libyan oil. Well, most of you who have been analyzing the challenges in Libya have seen that it has been a major cause of concern on stability in that country, which is oil producing post-Muammar Gaddafi era. Military contractors with links to Russia, according to reports, have seized control of 2 oil fields in Libya, including the country's largest field and its most important export terminal, Es Sida. That has allowed the LNA to maintain an oil blockade, scuttling attempts by the GNA to restart oil exports. Meanwhile, the United Nations has warned that the proxy war in Libya between global powers risks starting a broader regional war, and that's why it's important that these issues are addressed and resolved. The UK, on its own part, expects export operations to jump to 30 million by 2040, and the electricity grid could be carbon negative by 2033, according to National Grid. That will require carbon capture, and also it will require storage in deeper levels for UK. So those of us in the UK, you now understand what's happening around the energy space, and we'll be monitoring that interesting developments. Canada, on its part, the Canadian oil producers have cut 1.3 million barrels per day of production at the onset of the pandemic, and the curtailments allowed inventories to come down and regional prices to rebound. The rig count is also on the rise. They are coming out of the other side of this decent shape. Matt Murphy, an analyst with Tudor, Pickering, Holt and Company in Calgary, told the Wall Street Journal. He said he thinks the insight will have been a fairly smart decision to cut production. Those are the updates from the oil and gas. And then finally, Permian driller Rose Hill has filed for bankruptcy. It's not an easy time for the oil and gas industry. It's filed, the company is active in the Delaware Basin in the US, and it's finding its feet and is now filing for bankruptcy, which shows that it's a really challenging time. Egypt is looking good as oil majors say they have found significant gas discovery in Egypt. So apart from Nigeria, Egypt is on board to come in terms of gas discovery, and that could be good because apart from oil, Egypt can also diversify to gas operations. Those are the updates we have from the oil and gas energy market, and we'll get more updates for you as they come, because it's really important as we look at developments across the markets. When you look at COVID-19, one of the areas it has been affected and really impacted is consumer confidence across the globe. The U.S. consumer confidence fell more than expected in July amid a flare-up in COVID-19 infections across the country, which is threatening the economy's recovery from an unprecedented recession caused by the pandemic. A survey from the Conference Board this week, Tuesday, showed consumers gloomy about the economic prospect over the next 6 months. The ebb in confidence comes as millions of unemployed Americans are set to lose a $600 weekly jobless benefits supplement this Saturday. Rising virus cases that are resulting in a pause or rollbacks of reopening are no doubt weighing in on sentiments, said Rubella Faroki, chief U.S. economist at High Frequency Economics in White Plains, New York. Speaking further, he said, consumers are also concerned about job and income prospects. Without virus containment that will allow a fuller reopening of the economy, confidence measures will remain under pressure going forward. The Consumer Confidence Index slipping to 94.5 in July. The opening of businesses has boosted economic activity in recent months, but left the country struggling to contain the resurgence in new cases of the coronavirus, forcing some authorities in the hard-hit South and West regions to either close businesses again or halt reopenings. As a result, the number of people claiming unemployment benefits increased in mid-July for the first time since late March, when the closures of the non-essential businesses almost grounded the economy to a halt. The economy slipped into recession in February. So much so for what is happening across the globe. And not just in the US, the consumer confidence is being challenged across the world, from Europe even down to Nigeria. As we've discussed with several experts, Nigeria faces the consumer confidence challenge, particularly with rising tide of inflation and income challenges. Most businesses have activated pay cuts, so Nigerian consumers are also being conscious. Though we need to update the data in terms of consumer index, which when we get our experts to discuss that, we'll bring that to you in the course of our editions. As we've noted, COVID-19 has brought to the fore the need for governance and transparency and accountability, particularly in climes like Nigeria. It is worthy to note that industrialists, business leaders, institutions have contributed immensely to tackling the pandemic, but the place of accountability and transparency in institutions remains paramount in ensuring that this period we reinvent governance and drive innovation to service. Today, my take is that it's time for all ministries, departments and agencies, institutions in government to take seriously digitization. We understand that through the adoption of the IPPIS, the federal government has been able to save over 200 billion naira, but that should be taken further in terms of processes. For example, we see the reforms in the Corporate Affairs Commission, and we expect that it will continue at a deeper pace in terms of technology, where businesses can register promptly, at least in an hour. That's the dream, and it's achievable. In terms of the clearance at the ports and the clearance of cargoes, the National Trading Window, chaired by Vice President Professor Emil Simbajo, is a welcome development, and we expect that technology will be effectively deployed to ensure that people can clear their goods without unnecessary human interface. This pandemic has brought to the fore the need to digitize government operations, not just at the federal level, but at the state level and even the local government level. And so as we see across the states in Nigeria, the preparations for local government elections, it will be imperative for those who are aspiring to be local government chairmen to look at digitizing their local government operations. Imagine that happening. We don't need to have so much human interface. And in this period where a lot of caution has been brought to the fore, where there's a need to follow the protocols of COVID-19 and reducing interface and ensuring that we protect ourselves, digitization is one area that we can achieve this, and the government must take it seriously, and there must be huge investment in that regard to ensure that we have information stored effectively to various platforms that we can access and reduce the human interaction, which can also address the issues of corruption, extortion, and exploitation. That is the way to go. That is how we can reposition our country and become a brand that can attract huge investment. So investing in technology is not just one that government should consider. It's now a must-do for us to change and really transform our governance process. And that also dovetails to regulatory agencies. As we're seeing in the financial market space, the Securities and Exchange Commission has been driving that, and we expect that other regulators, key regulators across the country, will take that also seriously in terms of adoption of technology to make governance much better for Nigerians. And that will be a wrap for today's edition of the Economy and Politics Show. Please send your comments and views to news@prochange.com. You can also join our website, www.prochange.com, to watch our videos, read our news reports and analysis. Till we come your way again in whatever economic debate and conversation you engage, make sure it is constructive and productive. Join us by 10 a.m. for the market review, where we give you developments around the financial and capital market as it relates to the economy. Till we come your way again, thank you for watching. Have a nice time and stay safe.